So today I am continuing my Let's Make Macarons Out of Random Things or Inspired by Random Things series, and I want to go to a donut shop that I've been to before and I'm obsessed with. I haven't been back since I've been in Portland this time. It is so good, and their thing is they make like mini donuts to order, and then they also like a bunch of chai. So let's go get some donuts and chai and then return and make some macarons out of them. So let's hop in my car and head over. I hit some really weird construction, but it's okay. I finally arrived. Let's go find some donuts. It's raining again, so I'm back in my car. So I got the goods, and not only did I get donuts, and I got cinnamon sugar because I have a very fun macaron idea to do. So I got that, and then also their seasonal special is mango and ghost pepper. So this is just breakfast dessert, so. It's mostly mango, flavored. I'm getting some spice though. This is good. I recommend. Ooh, it's increasingly spicy the longer it is in my mouth. So I'm gonna drop these off. I'm gonna drop some of these off at my brother's house, and yeah, so I'm gonna go home and get to baking. I have some ideas for making both a donut macaron and a chai macaron. I got a chai. They have 5 on their menu. Some of them are not caffeinated, some of them are. A lot of different things, and I got one called the King and I to drink on my way home. And then also I got their chai concentrate, so that should help in making macarons. Oh my god, my lips are very tingly from the ghost pepper. I did not eat that much. Okay, let's go. As I mentioned, I have some cinnamon sugar mini donuts, and then also a chai that has a Thai tea, black tea base, and I am going to make one macaron for each of them. So I'm going to start off with the donut version, and I'm just making my regular macaron shells. I am here in my Portland kitchen, so I'm lacking tools, and the reason you see all of these colors is because I only brought so many food coloring colors with me, and as you see here, I have my hand mixer. My tools are just, not what I have in my Minneapolis kitchen, which is fine. We're gonna make do, but I need to make a brown, so I'm going back to like elementary school art / toddler finger painting experience, and I'm just gonna mix all of my colors together to create what will hopefully be an okay brown color. And in the beginning, it definitely looks suspect, but believe me, it turned out perfectly. Highly recommend mixing all your random bright colors together to get a really nice brown. Anyway, I'm just whipping my meringue with all of these colors to a really stiff glossy peak. That is really, really important for the structure of your macaron shell. If you are struggling with your meringue or your macarons not baking correctly, especially if there are big gaps in your inside of your shells, even after they've matured, or the feet are getting weird, or, all of these different things that they're not baking correctly, always go back to the meringue. Was it stiff enough? Was it, the right consistency? Because that is hugely important. I mixed all my dry ingredients together. I did not show that on camera because I show it so many times and I have so many things to show you today. So I'm just going to take that macaron batter that I got to the ribbon consistency, and I'm just going to pipe regular circles. For these macarons, I wanted to add a royal icing topping sort of decoration. And this is something that I could have piped like a donut, right, and left a hole in the center, or, that would have been really cute. The hard thing with that for me is that I feel like by necessity it needs less filling, otherwise it squishes out that center hole and it looks really stupid. So because I wanted to add a ton of filling, I have a great donut buttercream recipe. I thought it was important that I keep these just regular circles. So I'm going to let these rest, bake them off. My Portland kitchen really likes me to bake with my trays upside down so that lip is not getting in the way, for about 20 minutes. That's very different from my Minneapolis kitchen. And then because I was running out of time, it was getting very late at night, I just put them into airtight containers until the next morning. So for the top, I have some really concentrated cinnamon sugar, and then a slightly brown royal icing. And I'm going to pipe two different kind of ways. Usually for donut macarons, I like the royal icing on the top to look like a donut, and I thought I would like that here too. However, I think it's especially cute when it's a really bright color and there are sprinkles and on and on. Because I was just adding cinnamon sugar and everything ended up being exactly the same color, somehow I managed to get the shells perfectly cinnamon colored. It ended up looking fine, but not excellent. So after I tried some that looked more like an actual donut, I decided to just pipe a bit of royal icing on, smear it around with my offset palette knife, and then just sprinkle the cinnamon sugar onto that, because I really like the idea of it being coated in cinnamon sugar. Yes, you could just sprinkle cinnamon sugar on top of your macarons before they bake, right? And so then it's just coated like that. But I really wanted there to be a lot, and sometimes when you add a ton of sugar or something before you bake your macaron shells, it can get weird and they can explode. They don't always bake perfectly when you do that. If it's a lot, if it's just a little sprinkle, it's fine. But I wanted a lot because these mini donuts, they're just coated in cinnamon sugar. So I really wanted to keep that true to the donuts. After letting those rest for a while so that royal icing could harden, it's time to make the buttercream. And this is more of an American style cream cheese buttercream actually, and I chose this inspired by Christina Tosi's recipe because it literally calls for crumbled up pieces of donut in it, and then it also, because of that cream cheese, you get this tangy element that helps to cut through a bit of the really excessive sweetness from the donuts and the powdered sugar. So for this, it's super easy, just creaming together your butter and sugar until it is really light and fluffy, and then at that point you can add in your cream cheese and vanilla. Again, get that really nicely incorporated. The important thing to remember here is always use room temperature cream cheese. Pull that out from your refrigerator
minimum 30 minutes before you start using it, or you will have a heck of a time getting a smooth buttercream. And then you can add in your donut pieces. This is one of those things that is to taste. You could add more or less. You can add whatever donut you want. I did this the day after because I wanted my donuts to be not super fresh. I wanted them to be easier to break up and crumble. I didn't have a food processor. That probably would have been really useful. I just used my hands. Alright, so now that my royal icing is dry, I'm just going to pipe that donut buttercream on the inside. And I know it does not look attractive, but let me tell you, they taste fabulous. They're really, really good. Alright, so I'm going to sandwich these and get them in my refrigerator to start the maturing process. And while that is happening, let's make some chai macarons. These I am going to infuse the chai in two different ways. First is with a caramel. I substituted out some of my heavy cream for this chai concentrate, and that is important. If you just have chai, it might be a little bit too watery because it's a concentrate. It's going to work really, really well to infuse a really intense flavor. As with many caramel recipes, this starts with a dry caramel, adding a little bit of sugar at a time until everything is perfectly caramelized. And while that is happening, as you saw there, I heated up my chai and cream mixture. That is also super important. Once I start whisking together the caramelized sugar and the cream, you are going to have this intense reaction, right? Because the sugar is so hot. And because you don't want to shock it any more than it already is going to be, you want the cream to be warmer, so that it has an easier time incorporating. So definitely keep that in mind. You really want that cream mixture to be quite warm. So I'm just going to add that a little bit of it at a time, and primarily that is so I can incorporate everything really smoothly, but also so that the caramel does not boil over onto my stove. Once I have everything incorporated, I'm just going to turn the heat back on for like a minute just to make sure that everything is thoroughly combined. Then I'm going to take it off the heat, add in my butter, and use an immersion blender just once again to make sure everything is perfectly emulsified. For the Macaron Shells, this is another situation where I wanted something that was relatively brown colored, and I didn't have a brown food coloring with me. So I'm starting off with my French method meringue for my shells, room temperature egg whites. I'll stream in my sugar. Once the sugar is all incorporated and I've achieved about a medium peak, I'm going to add in some food coloring to try to achieve the color I'm looking for. Now with this one, you might see that I have an extra bowl hiding in the background there, and that is because I want to create a swirled macaron shell. So I am going to color all of this brown, but then once I get my dry ingredients incorporated, I am going to separate my batter into two and leave one that kind of light brown color and then add orange to the second bowl to create more of a Thai tea orange brown, if that makes sense. I'm going to do a really simple swirled macaron with just two colors next to each other, but I really wanted to show on the outside that this Thai tea based chai has so many different flavors going on, and I thought that this would be the perfect way to kind of have one swirl represent the tea part and one swirl represent all of the spices that are inside. So I'm just going to finish whipping my meringue to really stiff peaks, fold in my dry ingredients, separate my batter into two, color the orange, and then I can finish that macaronage process, getting each bowl separately to the ribbon stage before scooping out the batter, putting it onto some plastic wrap so I can get that really perfect swirl inside my piping bag. Piping a swirled macaron is not challenging. I think if anything, it even helps you practice how to release pressure and to cut off your macaron batter so you don't get pointy tips. It has a really good visual representation of that. And I think the really cool thing is that depending on how much of a swirl you put into your wrist, how much you're moving, which direction you're moving, you can get really different looking shells even within the same batter, the same batch, which is super fun. For this, I went for more of a larger single wave. If you've seen some of my other videos, I have a lot of other ideas and techniques for creating swirls with different colors, but I think it's a really fun thing to play around with. After piping these, I'll just tap my trays, let them rest, and bake. As I mentioned before, my Portland kitchen, the oven, was not quite as good as my Minneapolis oven, and so these needed a bit longer to rest, a bit longer to bake. While that is happening, I'm going to move on to my buttercream, and I am just going to create a really simple vanilla Swiss meringue buttercream and then add some of that Thai tea concentrate inside of it after it's done. A Swiss meringue buttercream involves a double boiler. There's slightly simmering water in the pot below this bowl, which will just heat the egg whites and sugar together. And you can do that until it's somewhere between warm and hot to the touch. Take it off of the double boiler and then start whipping up your meringue. Either you can transfer this to the bowl of your stand mixer, or if you are like me in my Portland kitchen, you can just use a hand mixer for that as well. And just like any buttercream, once the meringue is cooled to almost room temperature and is really light and fluffy, you can start adding in your butter. Alright, so I just added in that Thai tea concentrate. You can already see how orange and luscious it is looking, except for when you add something that has a water base to something that has a fat base like a buttercream, it is going to look all squirrely and weird in the beginning. Don't panic, it will incorporate. Okay, finally time to fill these macarons. I'm so excited. I've got all my shells baked and matched, and I'm just going to pipe a ring of that chai concentrate buttercream around the outside and then fill the inner part with the chai caramel. Before sandwiching and letting these mature in the refrigerator or freezer for at least 24 hours. Let me tell you, phenomenal idea. These were so delicious. I love anything chai or Thai tea or tea in general flavored. They were really, really delicious. And if you are not in the Portland area to try making these with the original recipe, the original ingredients, definitely look in local tea stores and online to see if you can find a Thai tea based chai or even make one yourself. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this donut and chai macaron adventure I had based on my trip to PIP's Donuts here in Portland. I had so much fun. I hope you did as well. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. I'd love to see you here again for my next pastry tutorial. Alright, until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye!